Brian Kelly had a judgment or placed a judgment on LSU in reference to his buyout that is worth approximately $54 million. Listen, I don't know if it's my job to, when we come out here and make these segments and talk about these segments, to catch everybody up to what's going on. I feel like it's my job to react to situations. If you want to see what is going on, we have multiple clips, multiple videos about it. Go catch up on it. But LSU and Brian Kelly are in a judgment in reference to LSU now stating through the attorney, meaning Brian Kelly's attorney, that they fired Brian Kelly for cause. They terminated Brian Kelly for cause. That is what Brian Kelly's attorneys are stating, and that is what they put in the lawsuit to an East Baton Rouge courthouse. Now, it is the way that I understand this, that this judgment works out this way, just so we all understand this and we're all on the same page. We have attorneys that sponsor the show, and yes, they were talked to today. Multiple ones of them were talked to today about the current situation that Brian Kelly and LSU find themselves in. They're in a judgment. And in the judgment, a judge declares pretty much if the judgment for the judgment of what happened to Brian Kelly was the right actions that held. So the way that I understand this, here's where we're at, just so we're all understood. Brian Kelly got fired this Sunday after Texas A&M. From what the lawsuit states from Brian Kelly, Scott Woodward, along with Verge Alsbury, along with Austin Thomas, told Brian Kelly that he was relieved of his duties. LSU is now stating that Scott Woodward did not have the authority to be able to fire Brian Kelly without the Board of Supervisors. LSU is stating that the reason that sitting athletic director Scott Woodward did not have the authority to fire Brian Kelly, who was the sitting head coach at the time, was because of their bylaws. And in their bylaws, they state in Section 1, Article 8, subsection L, that Scott Woodward needs the Board of Supervisors approval to hire or fire an employee that makes over $250,000 a year. That is what LSU is claiming. So, to give you a timeline of what everything is going on, even though I said I don't know if it's my job, let's walk through it just in case. You get beat by Texas A&M the Sunday after Brian Kelly gets fired. Something happens in between Brian Kelly and Scott Woodward having a conversation that the Board of Supervisors got involved. Here's what I believe happened. What I believe happened is Scott Woodward fired Brian Kelly and then went and told the Board of Supervisors that he had fired Brian Kelly, in which they stated, I beg your pardon? The governor was contacted because they don't have a sitting president. And because you don't have a sitting president, the governor is now involved. Even though he went on national television and said that he's not, we all know that is complete dog shit. He said that they went over the legalese of the contract with Brian Kelly. Why are you going over the legalese of Brian Kelly's contract if you're not involved? So the Board of Supervisors, after being contacted by Scott Woodward, now we're back on track of what we do know. The Board of Supervisors at LSU were summoned to the governor's mansion to talk about the contract of Brian Kelly. In the released statement, in reference to Brian Kelly being terminated, and also in Scott Woodward's address, it mentions the Board of Supervisors that Scott Woodward, Brian Kelly appreciates the Board of Supervisors in leading this conversation, in leading this situation. So if that is the case, did they ultimately tell Brian Kelly that he had been fired for cause? Does Scott Woodward have the legal authority to be able to fire Brian Kelly? Now, before you say, well, Blake, he's the sitting athletic director. The way that I understand LSU bylaws that are in there, and I know Tom Mars pushed it back, It says that he doesn't without the Board of Supervisor approval. Now, that is what the judgment is about. The judgment is not about cause, meaning the judgment, when they go to court for the first time, they are not trying to prove the cause of what Brian Kelly's actions were that got him fired. They are trying to make sure that Brian Kelly was actually fired for a cause or he wasn't. Meaning, if I'm Scott Woodward says to Brian Kelly, hey, we're firing you and we're giving you your entire buyout and we'll have some negotiations, which the board says he didn't have the authority to do. The board came back and said, listen, he doesn't have the authority to do that. However, you're fired. You're fired. Kind of like Vince McMahon in WWE. You're fired. You're fired. But instead of what Scott said, we're firing you with cause. We have cause to fire you. That is what they're going to find out. Who actually had the legal authority, and was Brian Kelly fired and told that he was fired with cause or without? That is what they're fighting. What they're going to court on and what they're not fighting about in this judgment, the way that I understand this is they're not fighting for what he did off the field that allegedly got him fired. Are we all on the same page here? Are we all on the same page? Because that is what's going on here. Now, after talking to attorneys today, I got the opinion of one. They sponsor the show. I asked him in a conversation today, do you think LSU could win this judgment? Before the statement even came out about the bylaws, he said, what are the bylaws for LSU? Does Scott Woodward have the ultimate autonomy to hire and fire coaches without the Board of Supervisors' approval? Which this states he does not. So they are going to go to court and fight over that. This is not a fight of, did Brian Kelly have marital affairs, which is a rumor. It's not about, did he play too much golf? It's not about any kind of off-field issues that he might have, regardless of what they were. It's not even going to really be about the divorce. Now, doesn't mean that all of that can't come out in discovery. Doesn't mean that when LSU presents why they think that they have a case, that they say, well, no, the Board of Supervisors told Brian Kelly was fired for cause, and these are the list of reasons of why we're firing him with cause. That is very likely what could happen here. And you're going to know why the Board of Supervisors is trying to fire him for a cause. It seems as if that Scott Woodward didn't. That is what they are arguing. I'm assuming that they are going to produce, meaning Brian Kelly is going to produce text messages between Scott Woodward and his own agent and Trace Armstrong, which is a massive conflict of interest, which I also think is going to be brought up here, to be blunt with you. I think it's going to be brought up that how does Scott Woodward have the legal authority to have an agreement with his own agent about a guy that he also represents? I think that's going to come up. Whether they can fight that or not, I don't know. But it is going to be an issue. This is starting to become very messy. So now that we're all caught up about everything that's going on in this judgment, let's walk through some of these things that are happening currently. Number one, in the lawsuit from Brian Kelly, it is stated that LSU tried to give him a $25 to $30 million lump sum. Here's the truth. They're just trying not to pay the $54 million, which I don't blame them. But no one in the history of the world has been able to win one of these cases in reference to the Brian Kelly level of situation. You don't have a Rick Pitino situation. You don't have a situation where Hugh Freeze had prostitutes on speed dial. You don't have that level of situation, at least what we think that you don't. Let's just say hypothetically, though, LSU does. Why the hell would they release that on their own university? Just throwing that out there. If you got something so high level for cause that Brian Kelly was doing or allowed to happen, why in the good wide world would you go to a legal court system and fight that, saying, oh, he was doing X, Y, and Z, and then here comes the NCAA? Hello, what happened? Why would you do that? There have been a lot of rumors that have gone on in reference to Brian Kelly. We had court documents where his wife filed for divorce. You had rumors that circled around about allegedly things happening outside of the marriage. Those were rumors. I can't confirm them, nor am I trying to. There have been rumors about so many other things. Well, then now LSU, if they get this judgment passed, they're going to have to prove that they fired him for cause. If they can prove in court that the Board of Supervisors, who by the own bylaws, states that Scott Woodward did not have the authority to make this hiring or firing without the board's approval, then you get into a situation where, well, then what did the Board of Supervisors tell everyone or tell Brian Kelly or tell his attorneys why he got fired for cause? Here's the truth. The more than likely thing that's going to happen here is both parties are going to settle. And they should settle. But yet again, it's another day, another situation that you're showing to the world that there's toxicity and a lack of alignment. Man, every single day, LSU just can't get out of their own way. They can't find a way to get out of their own way. Because you're front page news every day. For 3 weeks, you have come, guys, almost a month. Sunday will be another week that's added into. I was thinking if it's been a month, but no, it wouldn't have. No, it would. Guys, you're getting close to a month of this being a thing. Where every day or every other day, your front page headline news of something dumb that you're doing. Brian Kelly wants his money. And I get that the Board of Supervisors said, well, hey, we're firing him with cause. Scott Woodward didn't. I get it. It's just another situation in a plan that LSU didn't understand that could be executed. And quite frankly, it seems as if that Scott Woodward, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, also screwed you and didn't think this thing through. Because the matter of the fact is, Scott Woodward, from Brian Kelly, Scott Woodward fired him. And it would appear that he didn't run it up the chain of command. And the reason he didn't run it up the chain of command is mainly due to the point that there was no alignment. See, if William Tate was still here, he could have gone to William Tate. He could have gone to the president of the university and said, hey, man, we got to move on here. And William Tate probably would have obliged. But now you're in a situation where politics, and because this is Louisiana, are overcoming this thing on a daily basis. And quite frankly, it worries me. The reason it worries me is because every single day or every other day, it's chaos upon chaos and actions that continue to happen that you're wanting me to put faith in. You're wanting me to put trust in the people that are making these decisions to be able to get the best head coach in here for LSU football. They very well may be able to get a very damn good football coach in here that comes into LSU and wins a lot of games. That is what I hope that they do. But you're sitting here on November the 11th trying to ask me if I have faith in an organization or alignment a part of this, whether it be the governor, the Board of Supervisors, the president, or the sitting AD, regardless of who it is, you're now wanting me to have faith in them to be able to hire the right guy or be able to know what situation that they're in and understand how the process works without not shaking up what LSU football has been built since the year 2000. Guys, this isn't political. I haven't come out here and talked about taxes. I haven't come out here and talked about any level of political issues. The only political issue that you and I have talked about is a governor using his power, rightfully so, using the power that is gifted to him through the law, and at its overreach. It's overreach. Over and over and over again, you become front page headline news. And you want me to trust them. You want me to come out here and say, yeah, why wouldn't I have faith in them? Now you're dragging the attorney general into all this and Liz Merrill. Now she's got to fight something that she had nothing to, she wasn't even remotely close to being involved in. Look, man. How does Lane Kiffin see this situation? How does Eli Drinkowitz see this situation? Jeff Brom, Clark Lee, Alex Golish. How do any of these coaches that you're, Nick Saban, how do any of you think that they look at this situation? Are you scaring them away? The board of supervisors, the president of the university, Verge Alsbury, the governor, may be able to find a really good head coach that comes into LSU and is able to sustain it and make it successful for a long period of time. And I hope that that is the case of what they do. But as I stated earlier, and I'll state again for the record, after all of this chaos, you're wanting me to come out here and say to myself and say to you that I have no worry, that I trust their judgment, that I trust that they have a plan, that I trust that they can have alignment, that I trust that you have an athletic director that maybe the governor doesn't really like, but once you have a head coach in here that he's not canned, what? No. I hope LSU success. I hope they win the first judgment. I hope that they do come to find a situation where that they win this judgment and that buyout gets massively reduced. I do. I hope that the settlement is reached. And probably and ultimately what's going to happen here is they're fighting it out. It's a nasty divorce. You're separating property and a settlement's going to happen here. So what we're basically going to do, and it might be a massive win for LSU if they can get Brian Kelly down to $25 million. If they could do that, they could get it to $30 million. Hell, quite honestly, if they could get it to $40 million, it's a win for LSU. It's still a win for Brian Kelly. He's got $40 million freaking dollars. I get what you're trying to do. But ultimately, what's going to happen here is nothing comes out of this. You might have a little win. And Blake, $14 million is not a little win. You're right. It's not a little win if you can get Brian Kelly to settle in all of this. But right now, it feels like that I have a black eye, even though I won the fight. It feels like I still got a bloody lip and a black eye, even though I might win the ultimate fight here. I went through hell for 3 long weeks, if not now longer. And even though I might win, even though the governor or the president or Verge Alsbury or the board of supervisors and Scott Ballard, you might be able to find it. But damn, I went a month through getting punched in the face every day in reference to, man, can you find any alignment? These are the things that I would assume that might be found in discovery. The Greg Brooks situation, the Colin Hurley situation. The situation at hand when it comes to Brian Kelly and what happened with the divorce and other rumors that are out there. Those things that might be coming. And I don't know if Brian Kelly wants that. I don't know if Brian Kelly ultimately wants this thing all out there. I don't know if Brian Kelly wants his dirty laundry out there. Maybe he doesn't care. Hey, man, you can air out my dirty laundry. If I win, you got to give me $54 million. Jordan fades back, swish, and that's the game, Your Honor. The whole Greg Brooks situation, I saw a lot of you on social media today bringing that up. Brian Kelly's not a doctor. Brian Kelly did not give Greg Brooks a tumor. He's not a doctor. He's a football coach.